Hello, hauntlings. Shh. I'm Alyssa, and this is my devilishly delightful wipe and library keep, Lindsay. This is Macabre at Midnight, Listener Library. Be sure to keep your voice down, but do come in and make yourself at home. We haven't begun yet. I was just about to open up the first chapter. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us here on our Listener Library. This is our first episode. I'm super excited to get it going.
It should be lots of fun. Got lots of cool things to talk about.
Yep. We got a few submissions. We had some people inquire. We haven't heard from them yet, but we hope to hear from you guys soon. But with that in mind, we do have some urban legends to fill the space if there is any. We'll let you know whenever it comes time. A couple things I want to mention. The first being, I am so sorry for last night. I know we didn't get episode 6 posted until like 4:30 in the morning. We were actually on our way to the airport to pick my dad up, and
we got lost.
We didn't get lost.
No,
the GPS got lost.
The bridge was out, and the GPS didn't know that, and it kept trying to take me back to it. So we had to figure out another way around.
It was taking us in circles. It was taking us in circles in a city that we're not really familiar with, that we don't really go to. So, yeah. And then, like, when we got home, we had to make dinner because we do work second shift. So we're like late nighters. And my dad had been on a plane for 8 hours. So he was hungry. So we like cooked dinner, and then we sat and caught up because it's been 3 years. And then we're getting ready to go to bed. And I'm like, oh my God. They're like, what? I didn't post the podcast.
It doesn't post automatically.
It has it. Well, no, it does. But this is why we want to record ahead of time, because like we were busy last night.
Right. But I mean, it wasn't fully ready to post automatically. Like it wasn't queued up.
It was processing
in such a way that
but
it could do it on its own.
So again, I have a week off from school coming up here at the end of February, and I have like 2 more weeks of school left. And during that week, we're going to record ahead so that hopefully you late night listeners don't have to wait again. I am so sorry. And I also wanted to apologize because on the Instagram, I was posting it as episode 5, and it was episode 6.
Yeah, I should also clarify on TikTok. If you saw the post I made on TikTok, I posted it on Sunday night for some reason, thinking that Sunday was Monday. So I didn't realize after the fact, like, oh crap, today is actually Sunday.
Yeah.
So yeah, sorry about that.
You guys, we don't have a management team. We're doing this ourselves, and we're a mess. So just forgive us, okay? We're trying. We're doing our best. So sorry about that. We're going to try not to let it happen again. We're going to hopefully get ahead of the game on that.
Well, I mean, this whole week's been a mess. Anyways.
This whole week has been a freaking mess. All right. So yeah, again, we just wanted to apologize for that. That was our bad. Another thing, once again, we are now recording in the living room. I was listening last time editing, and it did sound a little bit echoey. I think I solved the problem, but I'm not sure. But yeah, so if that last episode was a little quiet, a little echoey, we're having to relearn the whole system. These are new mics. We are teaching ourselves how to do all this stuff. So if you guys know how to do this stuff, feel free to send us an email being like, hey, if you adjust this or do this, it might sound a little better. So
yeah, and on a note on that, right now we don't have the space for a proper studio. So
we're in the living room.
Yeah, putting foam up on the walls or getting into a room that's soundproofing.
It's not really an option right now.
Yeah, it's not. We just don't have
the
means of doing that right now. So we're just going to do the best we can until
we can.
Yeah.
And these mics have to be plugged into the computer. If we can get a laptop, then we can go back into the room where it's a little more soundproof. For now, we just have to stay plugged into the computer in the living room. So, I mean, we have a laptop, but I don't think it would support this audio.
No, the laptop is out of date, and we need a new one.
So you guys were old people, okay? We're old people. But before we get into it, because we're in the living room, I do want to apologize again if you hear my brother. He's very, very loud when he plays his games. I don't think that these mics will pick him up, but I don't know. They might. All right. So we were going to start this with one of our stories. Again, this week's theme is aliens, so we got a couple of alien stories for you. We were going to start with some of our stories, but I think in honor of this being our first episode, we're going to start with the first episode. We're going to start with the first episode. But yeah, in honor of this being our first episode of the Listener Library, I think that we are going to read our first submission.
Yeah.
So
I bet you they've been waiting on that since they sent it in.
They have. They actually just emailed me today and they were like, I'm so excited. So this person would like to go by my code or my code. I'm going to go with my code because I am not even going to lie. The less talking I can do, the better. I bit my tongue so hard at work yesterday. It's a little swollen. So, my code, thank you so much for your submission. I hope I'm saying it right. And we will start here. So, my code says, I wanted to send you an email regarding an experience that I had that's never left me, which I thought would be nice to share. It was nice of you to share. Thank you.
We appreciate you sharing with us.
We do. Why did you say that in that creepy goodbye voice that you said?
Because it's about to get spooky.
Oh my God. I wanted to send an email to you regarding an experience that's never left me, which I thought would be nice to share. For context, this experience happened between mid-2006 2008. My mother's youngest brother, Carl, has always been a curious mystery to me. He passed away long before I was born, and from the stories I've heard from him and my mom, and my grandma, I've always found him to be curious. He seemingly lived a normal life. He was interested in engineering, worked at the Sonic Drive-In, and was also asthmatic like I am. Me, too. I am over here trying to breathe in a house that is like 72 degrees, okay?
To be fair, it's cold outside.
Yeah, it's like freezing, and as you all know, my house is over 100 years old.
It is.
You gotta crank the heater up if you don't want to turn into a popsicle. He had a friend that he deeply cared about, which was for some reason looked down upon, and was sent to a camp somewhere in Colorado when my grandma and grandpa found out about their friendship. My grandma didn't understand, but she wanted nothing but the best for her youngest son. The events after he came back from the camp in Colorado are unknown to this day to my knowledge, but something happened that made Carl snap, and yet didn't raise alarms at first. One day, he simply didn't show up for work at his job at Sonic and attempted to unalive himself by walking into ongoing traffic.
Oh my God.
He was unsuccessful at first, despite getting hit and becoming hospitalized. He unfortunately did attempt a second time and succeeded. When his friend found out about his passing, he followed suit and unalived himself as well.
Holy crap. It's awful.
It is. I'm sure that Carl's story was mostly hidden, but over time, bits and pieces resurfaced, and looking back, weave together a tale of two young guys in love in a time where it wasn't accepted or understood.
That's sad.
That is sad. I hate that for them. I always thought of him to be someone to look up to when either my mom or grandma would talk about Carl. He died 5 years before I was born, but even then, I did wish I could have seen or heard him. Little did I know that I would get a chance later on in my life. In 2006, my grandma needed my mom and I to move in with her to take care of her new husband, Dwayne, because she couldn't do it alone. At the time, my room, which was once Carl's and was currently my grandpa's study. One summer day, at least a year into living with my grandma, we were on a landline talking to my grandma. I was on the phone in my room while my grandma talked on her phone in her room.
I remember landlines.
Yeah, me too.
Where you could just pick up the phone and hear the call going on the other line.
Not if you were me, because here's what I heard on the other line. Alyssa, are you on the phone?
Well, Liz, that's why you gotta cover the receiver if you're gonna eavesdrop.
I was like freaking too young to even know the word banana, okay? Like, I wasn't gonna think like that.
Gosh.
All of a sudden, as we were talking, I heard a slow, monotone voice that only I seemingly heard, where no one else could listen. Hello? This is Carl, was the first thing I heard from the disembodied voice. My grandma and great-grandma were both confused with my sudden change in tone, and I was trying to explain that I was hearing Carl. They couldn't believe it, but I was suddenly asking if he was still there. And the last thing he said was, "It's time for me to go now. Goodbye." Once I heard that, I instinctively hung up after saying goodbye, followed by hearing crying from my grandma's room. A few days afterwards, I woke up one night to the sound of shuffling. Thinking it was my grandma, I got up to get something to drink, but when I opened my door, I imagined the hall light to be on, only to see it completely off. Shrugging as I walked to the kitchen, I saw a black shadow standing in my way. I remember being frozen in shock and hightailed back to the room in fear when I heard, "Hello?" I was scared and couldn't find myself going to sleep that night, while at the same time found my mind racing, thinking it was my late younger uncle.
To be fair, I would have noped out of there too. 'Cause forget all of that.
Oh my god. No, like, especially like seeing like a black shadow, that would spook me. But
I'm just like the fact that there's a shadow there and it spoke. I'm like,
And
nope,
it
nope,
spoke.
nope, nope, nope. Didn't need a drink.
I wonder if it sounded like the same voice on the
Like on the phone.
phone. Yeah, you guys, I can hear how dry my mouth is. I am so sorry.
Hello.
I explained it to my mom and grandmother, and while my mom was fascinated by my story, my grandma found it insulting. Since then, I haven't dealt with a similar event like that, but to this day, I still think of my Uncle Carl now and then, thinking how he'd be like and if his friends were still alive today. That's a sad story.
It is.
That's so sad. But my code, I am glad that you got to say hello to your uncle after wanting to meet him. I think he was probably reaching out to you specifically since the other two couldn't hear him. So I'm glad for that. Thank you for submitting your story. Thanks for sharing with us.
Yeah, that was really interesting. As creeped out, I'm sure you were at the time. Things like that are they don't happen very often. I think when it comes to like family members who've passed away.
Really? I think it happens more with family members.
Well, I mean, I feel like it depends on the person.
Yeah.
Some people aren't open to that kind of thing, so I don't think it happens as often as it probably could.
Yeah, that's true.
But to people who probably are more open, I'm sure you've heard stories similar to that.
Yeah. No. Skeptics definitely. Like, sometimes it takes a really big event for a skeptic to believe, so I think you're right. They're probably going to come to people who are more open. So yeah, thanks again, my code. If you ever have
Any more experiences,
you know, we'd love to hear them, and we are honored that you shared that one with us. So,
or you know, even if you've seen this same one again in just a different way,
yeah,
like I would be interested in hearing more about this, like if something else happened.
Yeah. So before we go on to the rest of our stories, Lindsay and I are each going to share one of our stories. We both have many stories.
Oh, yes. Many experiences.
Yes. I think that I'm going to let Lindsay go first since I just read that. So, Lindsay, tell us your scary story.
Okay, so...
Is this an experience or a story?
No, it's an experience.
Okay.
So, much similar to my code, I think you said their name was?
Yes.
I'm going to share one of my experiences that similar to that because that was my first thought. Was I had a similar experience. It was actually one of the first experiences I have ever had, as far as I can remember.
Mm-hmm.
Because when it happened, I was only 2 years old.
Oh. And you remember it?
I do. It was one of my first memories.
My first memory was stealing kittens out of my grandma's garage with my cousin and, like, unraveling toilet paper. So,
well, that's a lot less spooky. So, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and dive into this.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a young child,
You're still a young child.
A younger child.
She's not even going to rebuttal it.
I would go visit my grandmother's house frequently.
Okay.
And she actually does not live out in the country or anything like that. Her house sat on like a private drive in like off a busy street.
Is that like relevant to the story?
Yeah.
Okay.
This house was over 100 years old to my knowledge at the time that I was young. So it's probably even older now. Anyways, we were there for a visit this particular day. I don't remember the time of year it was. I don't even remember what day it was or anything like that. I just remember what happened.
Okay.
So my cousins actually lived right across the street from my grandmother's house. So often they would come over when we were over there and we would all play together.
Yeah.
And we like to play in my grandma's basement. My grandma had a very big basement. It like took up the whole, it was like the same size of her whole first floor.
Okay.
She used it for storage and like food storage and things. That's where her laundry room was.
Yeah.
It was like an unfinished basement, so there was furniture down there, but there was no carpet, nothing like that. Just shelving and things. So we were playing down there, and I was like 2 years old. And at some point, I think the older kids went upstairs for something. I don't really remember. I just remember I was sitting in the back corner of...
Just in case, I don't mean to interrupt. Just in case y'all wondered, she's not talking to me. She's still looking at her voice on the computer screen when she talks.
I remember I was sitting in the back corner of this basement.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. On the floor. I can't remember what I was playing with, but I just remember hearing a voice and then looking up, and like this white mist kind of formed in front of me.
Okay.
And it formed into the shape of a man. Okay. And then this man was wearing, like, I could see him, like, he was white and misty, right?
Okay.
But he was clear enough that I could see him.
Yeah.
He was wearing a suit and, like, a beret.
Okay.
And he said to me, "Tell your grandmother everything's okay. I'm not sick anymore."
Oh.
And so little me didn't know the difference, like, between this being a ghost and like a person.
Yeah.
So
and you wouldn't feel threatened, like if it wasn't a
absolutely
bad
not. So,
energy. You know, kids are pretty open and susceptible.
Yeah, I just remember running up the stairs, and like my mom and my grandma were like sitting at the table, like talking, and I'm just like, "Hey, there's a man in the basement."
Oh my God.
And they're like,
imagine one of our like little kids in our family coming up being like, "There's a man in the basement."
Yeah. My mom said that she was a little confused by this. She's like, "What do you mean there's a man in the basement?"
I'd be concerned.
Yeah, she's like, "There's not a man in the basement. Like, what are you on about, kid?"
Oh my God.
So I was like, "No." So I went back downstairs, and he repeated his message. Mm-hmm. So I ran back upstairs, and I told them again, "There's a man in the basement."
You freaking going back and forth.
Like, I'm insisting there is a man in the basement, okay? And they're just like not believing it. So finally I'm like,
do you blame them?
No.
Oh God.
Finally though, I'm like, the man in the basement says that everything's okay and he's not sick anymore.
Yeah.
And my mom said that my grandma like immediately like broke down. Like
Aww.
She knew immediately who I was talking about.
Oh my God.
And like when I got older and I described to them what he was wearing.
Yeah.
I just remember the look on my mom's face being like total shock. She just like stared at me and she's like, "He was buried in that suit."
Oh my God. What?
My grandfather died when I was 10 months old.
Okay.
So I never actually got to meet him. Not that I remember, I was a baby. He died in that house.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it wasn't too strange that he showed up there later.
Right.
I have heard stories that they said when I was born, he was like so excited, like to meet me and stuff. And then, he passed away when I was 10 and a half months old. It's crazy that I actually, like, my first paranormal experience was with my grandfather.
Yeah.
And I actually had the experience of seeing him in the outfit that they had buried him in.
You're right. That does complement our first submission really nicely. It's the same kind of thing. That's lovely. I love that.
Yep. And it's stuck with me ever since then. And ever since then, I have been open to the paranormal. So I've had tons of experiences since.
Yeah, I know.
What about you, Liz? Do you have anything
Boy, do I.
spooky that's happened that might be relevant or unrelevant or on a completely different topic?
Listen, boy, oh boy, I could fill this library by myself. Okay.
I'm sure we both could. I mean, realistically.
So earlier this week, we were talking about the topic being aliens for the week. So we do have a few alien stories for tonight.
Now, this is interesting because I've, out of all the paranormal experiences I have ever had, I have never experienced aliens. So I'm a little skeptic on the existence of aliens. So I find this topic to be fascinating.
Yeah.
Anytime it comes up.
You're going to love freaking Friday's episode then. I am going to like blow you out of your socks. Okay.
Oh, please do. Make me a believer.
Oh, you will be a believer. I want to believe. So, this happened. All right. This is freaking wild. If my aunt's listening, don't listen to this story. Fast forward, because I know you listen.
Spoiler alert, her aunt is terrified of aliens.
Yes, she is. She hates aliens. I don't blame her. So, at the time, I want to say I was in like 6th grade. Okay. So old enough to remember this very clearly and to really not be bullshit. Okay. And yes, some kids bullshit their stories, but my brother and my sister were with me.
Uh-huh.
And they can attest to this. And like I went back years later and asked them both about it, but we'll get into that. We asked our parents if we could sleep in the backyard. We lived in Nevada, and that's where Area 51 is at, you know? Like, it's out there in Nevada.
Right.
So we lived in Nevada, and, well, we asked our parents, hey, can we go camp out in the backyard? Yeah, go ahead. Go camp out in the backyard.
That's always fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did you stay in tents, or how did you do it?
Well, see, in Nevada, there's a lot of just, like, there's not trees everywhere like there are here.
Right.
So it's real easy to see the night sky.
Okay.
And back then, there wasn't as much construction in the area. They're not by, like, there's a city there. There are cities there, but it's not like the cities we live by here, other than Vegas. But Vegas was way south. We were, like, up north.
Right.
And, you know, Nevada's a massive state. So we didn't do a tent. We would just sleep under the stars.
I guess that's not bad as long as it's a clear night and there's no rain or anything.
It doesn't really rain out there. It's a desert.
That's fair. I guess we only had to worry about that.
It rains in California. But if you recall, when it rained out there, it was like a mist for 2 minutes when we went out there.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah. But so we did not sleep in a tent. What we actually did was we took, you know, those cheap Dollar Tree pool floaty beds?
Oh, are you talking about like those rafts that
you lounge on them?
Yeah.
We each had one of those, and I remember them very vividly. There was a pink one, there was a green one, and there was a blue one, and they were see-through and frosted. Okay. And we blew them up, and we took them out there, and we laid them down. We, like, took all our blankets and stuff outside, and we're all laying there. We were, like, by the swing set. We had a 6-foot fence in the backyard.
Okay. Like
and
chain link fence?
No, it was, like, a wooden
fence.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there was a dog running in the backyard. It's actually where Bowser was born. This is the house Bowser was born in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So this happened, Bowser would have been like 17 this year, so about 17 years ago. And we're laying in the backyard, and all of a sudden, we see this triangular-shaped plane come over the house. Here's the thing.
Uh-huh.
This plane was going very slow. It was very low.
Like how low would you say?
Like, so do you remember when we went to Indianapolis for the Youngblood Palais Royale concert?
Yes, I do.
Do you remember how tall the building we went into was?
I believe so.
I don't remember what that building was called. Do you remember?
Nope.
The Egypt Room.
Yeah. Is that what it's called?
So the Egypt Room in Indianapolis, you remember going there?
Yes.
It was probably about that high off the ground.
Like as the building itself?
Yeah, like as the top of the building.
That's not very...
So what is that, like 3
maybe
stories?
3, yeah.
So yeah, it was not very high off the ground at all.
Holy crap, dude.
And there were lights all around the edges, like not separated, just like blinking, moving lights all around the edges. someone just took like those light strips that you can put around your living room and like put them around the plane.
Like those LED lights almost.
Yeah. But they were like all changing colors and this thing wasn't making any noise. It was totally silent. We're all just laying there staring at it. And then it stopped above our freaking house.
Oh my God.
Like over the dog pen. It wasn't over us, but it wasn't. I say it wasn't over our house, but literally it was close enough that whoever was piloting it could see us very clearly. Okay, so it wasn't like over our house.
That's scary.
Yeah. And it stops, and then if you like hold your hand out flat and you like with your palm to the floor and you slowly like turn it left and then you slowly turn it right, just like wiggle it back and forth slowly, it started moving like that.
Oh, it's almost like it was like looking around, like scanning the ground.
So,
and stuff. Yeah.
So I like yelled at my siblings to get up and get in the house. And we grabbed our blankets and everybody ran in the house. And my siblings went and sat in the living room away from the windows. And I was like, when I looked out the back kitchen window, it was gone. Like that fast. It was freaking gone. And you had like a clear view because we had a big, like a bay window that had a clear view of that part of the yard. And the bay window took up the whole wall. So like you could look up into the sky and see really well. And so this happened, and I told my parents about it. My dad, who, again, believes in aliens, and will share some of his stories with us this week, hopefully.
Yes.
I told my parents about it. My mom, my dad was military.
Right.
So my mom, like, immediately goes to, well, it's probably some sort of military aircraft. And I'm like, this was not military aircraft. And she's like, well, like, she rationalized that it was the F-22, or not, was it? Yeah, the F-22 Raptor.
Okay, which is for our non-military people, me included.
Okay. So the F-22 Raptor, this plane, when it had come out right around this time, and I don't know how long they had been testing it for or anything, but it was around the time it came out. And this freaking plane, this jet, is a jet that can lift off the ground, hover, and it can turn like that.
Okay.
And it can also just like lift, like if you take your hand palm to the ground and like slowly lift your fingers to the ceiling and make it like parallel.
So it can hover essentially, like
it can hover and it can fly parallel.
I see.
Slowly. But it's loud and it doesn't have lights around the edges like this. And this was literally like a perfect triangle. It wasn't like jets are shaped like a triangle.
Right. But they have like where the engines and things stick out. Like
this was a perfect triangle. And I'm sorry,
like
I have a
smooth triangle.
Yeah, smooth. Like if you took a ruler and drew a triangle. And I am sorry, but I have a very hard time believing that an F-22 Raptor is just going to stop over frickin' Sun Valley, Nevada. Okay. Oh. And like look around.
Yeah.
So that happened. Well, years and years later, actually, I know it was at least 10 years later because we had already moved here.
Right.
I asked both of my siblings about it without giving them the details. Because my mom like couldn't remember it. Now she doesn't remember it. And I asked both of my siblings about it. And they both like told me the exact same story to a T. And we had never talked about it.
Yeah, because that's Mom told me one of those things you don't want to talk about because you don't want to sound like a crazy person.
Well,
like,
and my mom
had really experienced that, or did I not?
And I wanted to trust my mom because aliens freak me out. Honestly, like they freak me out. I don't want to get abducted. Okay. And so I was just like, okay, it's like I accepted that. But, and I didn't question it until years and years later. So there's that. That's fun. Another story, this is not my story, but I do want to share it because it is alien related. And actually, you have
I do have an alien story.
No. This situation applies to you as well.
Does it?
Yes. So I had a friend when I was living in a big city.
Okay.
And it was right around the time I met you.
Okay.
So you know who I'm talking about?
I believe so.
Yeah, it was like right around the time I met you. And this friend had told me that she had been abducted. Okay. And, like you hear that and it's hard to believe when other people tell you these stories.
Yeah, because being abducted, like hearing stories about seeing UFOs is one thing, but when people start talking about abduction, you're like, what?
But the thing is, like, you think we tell our stories and they sound wild to other people.
Yeah, I mean, that's true.
It sucks because only the teller ever really knows. But this was not a person who, like, I knew to really lie or embellish things, you know?
Yeah.
Like, she was also from a military family. She was very, like, grounded in reality. And she said that she was abducted. She didn't tell me a story about it. She didn't give me any details, but she did tell me that, like, she would have nightmares, which I've heard is common.
Yes.
She would have nightmares. And then, like, 3 years after she was abducted, she got a bloody nose. She started getting bloody noses all the time after this. And one time when she had a bloody nose, like, a metal Tic Tac fell out of her nose. Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
No. And, like, the thing is, instruments are lost in surgery sometimes. So that could be, like, I don't know what kind of surgery she had, but I also can't think of a surgery that would require having a metal Tic Tac stuffed up your nose. I'm not a doctor, but I don't know if that's a thing.
Yeah, that sounds more like a tracker or something.
Yes.
That's kind of, I don't like that at all. That makes me uncomfortable.
So when I moved up there and I was rooming with them, it was in the same neighborhood that she was abducted from.
Yeah.
And I would get really freaked out.
Are you serious? I didn't even know that.
Yeah, it was the same neighborhood. And do you remember that one time when we were laying in my room on the bed and, like, the sun blacked out for
Oh my God, yes.
That was the same neighborhood.
That was the same day. What?
That was the same neighborhood.
Oh, no.
Lindsay and I were laying on the bed. We're laying on the bed and we're just talking. And I have guys, I am not even kidding you. Like, the room blacked out for, like, a whole...
It was
like, real brief. It was like if you flick a light switch on and off, but it was pitch
black. It was like the equivalent to closing your eyes for a minute and then opening them again.
Yeah, like, people have asked me, well, did, like, an airplane fly over the sun or a cloud? And I'm like, no, you could not see anything. It was like being in a dark room and taking a black cloth and putting it over your face. Like, it was pitch black.
And it only lasted a few seconds. So it was like your brain didn't even have time to process what had just happened.
And Lindsay, like,
I was just like, after
on the bed, she just keeps talking and I'm just like, did she not see that? And I go, did you see that? And she goes, yep. And I'm like, and you're not going to react? She just shrugged.
Yeah, I tried to, like, roll it off the money, like, just kind of, like, shrug it off because I was like, yeah, I'm not sure what that was, so I'm just going to pretend it didn't happen.
Like, it was a glitch in the Matrix.
Yeah.
We got rebooted. But yeah, that was the same freaking neighborhood.
Oh,
and it was a really bright, sunny day, too. This was like in the middle of summer.
Yep.
And it was a bright, sunny day. And my room was a very bright room. The walls were white. I had a really big window. Like, I didn't have any curtains or anything. The blinds were pulled up. It was a very bright room. Like, yeah.
Wow.
So, you just say, wow, you were there.
I know. Wow, because that whole thing, I don't like that it happened in that same neighborhood.
I'm like,
that's
what
uncomfy.
if we were abducted?
Oh gosh.
But I don't think so. I don't think we were abducted because Bowser was still there and he was, like, not freaking out or anything.
Right. Yeah. The dogs were just like,
they were just laying there.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't react. So I was like, but we just went on with our conversation. I was like, did you not see that? And she goes, yeah. And I'm like, what'd you see? She said, the sun went out.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, okay, I'm just
It's one of those moments where you're just like, you know what? Let's just pretend it never happened.
I mean, what else are you gonna do? You either have to, like, accept it or pretend it never happened.
Right.
And I've accepted it and I've Googled it and I can't find anything.
Yeah, so if you've ever experienced the sun blacking out for
the sun getting shut off real
unknown reasons, let us know so that way we don't feel like crazy people.
No. No. All right.
But speaking of aliens,
we're going back to stories.
Yes, I have another story for you that is alien related.
Oh, yay.
Okay, so this one is not mine, but it actually belongs to my sister. So it's her story.
Okay.
She says she was at her grandparents' house out in the country, messing around in her grandparents' family living room, looking out the big back door window, and she saw something that was round and rotating with red lights. and it was slowly going over the fields of the house.
Slowly, huh?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean like my freaking glowing Dorito?
Yeah, exactly like that. Put in perspective, her grandparents' house, they lived out in the middle of some cornfields, out in the country. So it was pretty isolated, I'd say. The next neighbors were a good while away, and there were definitely some fields nearby. So I know exactly what she's talking about. She said after she saw it, she got so scared she ran and jumped under a blanket that was on the couch and waited until it was gone. But then goes on to say that after this incident, she started having dreams. And that one of her friends advised her that dreams and nightmares, like you said, are common for people who experience abductions.
Oh, yeah.
So this is what her dreams...
Oh, no. She told you what they were about?
She told me what her dreams consisted of.
Okay.
She said like 95% of those dreams took place at that house. Some of them were at her mom's house in Donaldsville. Okay, which is like a little village not far from where this happened.
Can I guess?
Yes.
Was she like in her bed and getting abducted out of her room, like sleeping and like floating through the window?
No, not quite.
Okay, because I've heard that's...
There's some of that, but not quite.
So, okay, I'll save that for the next episode, but I'm going to hate it if that's what...
So she said the one that is most relevant to abductions was one that actually caused sleep paralysis. So she had a episode of sleep paralysis because of this nightmare. Okay. So she said that they would, these things, she didn't clarify what they look like, but these unknown things.
I don't want to know what they look
would,
like.
chase her through her grandparents' house and shoot her with something.
Oh.
Probably some kind of tranquilizer or something, I'm sure. But anyways, whatever they shot her with would paralyze her.
Yeah.
And then she would be paralyzed as she watched them approach, and then they would take her.
Oh.
Her other dream, she said, consisted of them abducting dogs.
No! I mean, I'm sorry, but no!
And a little trigger warning here, because...
no, they're killing the dogs, aren't they?
They're turning them inside out. And then she said that there are some other dreams where she's being chased by a beam through the house.
I thought you said bean at first.
No, beam, like a beam of light or something.
Okay.
She's being chased by a beam that she couldn't escape from. Other dreams consisted of invasions where they were being shot down from the sky. So they were terrifying. She said all of these happened when she was around 4 or 5 years old.
Oh, no. That's so...
Yeah, so...
I hate that.
She was pretty young when these were happening, but obviously this stuck with her because she's...
Yeah, really.
This is 30 years later, and she still remembers them.
They would have stuck with me, too.
Oh, yeah.
God.
So, she doesn't know she was abducted. She says, like I said, one of her friends said that some of her nightmares like sounded like she might have been abducted.
Yeah.
Therefore, like after she saw the ship, I guess, and then maybe in her sleep, it sounds like.
Yeah.
That's awful. That I've heard that's what happens is like specifically the Greys will come while you're asleep
and like take
you and like study you and then put you back before you wake up.
Yep.
So that's a little uncomfy for me. Like I definitely don't like that. So
that's a lot of uncomfy for me.
Yeah. Part of me is kind of glad I haven't experienced aliens, but I don't know.
Like seeing a UFO is one thing, but like getting abducted.
Oh yeah, that's what I said earlier. Like the idea of like being unknowingly being taken and like not being able to really remember if it was real or not is just like that's crazy to me. I don't like the idea of like something tampering with my brain or my body like that. Like
me neither. Not okay.
Like can't you just like learn to talk and like ask questions? Why you gotta do all this weird stuff, man?
Oh god. Just ask questions, guys. And by guys, I mean guys in the skies.
Guys in disguise. Or guys in disguise.
Guys in disguise.
They're among us.
Stop it. We're going to move on from aliens.
Getting the creeps, are you?
Yeah. So, these next few stories, the people who gave them to me, some of them didn't submit names, and some of them are people that I know. So I'm not going to disclose any names or locations on these people because there wasn't like exclusive permission given.
Okay.
For the rest of my stories.
That's fair.
Basically. So this first person submitted 3 stories. The first story, they're all relatively short, but these are all personal experiences. Again, all of our stories tonight are personal experiences, unless we get into urban legends. A long time ago, when I lived in Virginia, my 2 cousins and I were sitting in the living room watching TV. While my little sister slept on the couch. Out of nowhere, she wakes up out of a dead sleep and sits up straight and runs her hand along the wall behind the couch and says, "Feel the walls, they're cold." And then just drops back onto the couch and falls right back asleep. She didn't even acknowledge any of us. It was weird as hell. I'm laughing because I know this person.
I know this person too. This person's a friend of ours.
I can just imagine her reaction.
And I actually know her sister really well. So I remember when when this first happened.
Yeah, that seems like a very sleep-like thing to do to me, though. You know what I mean? Like, you do say weird things when you're... My sister spoke to me in Harry Potter accents once. Like, while she was sleeping, like, straight up was, like, speaking to me about saving Hermione with a British accent.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair.
Yeah.
But, like, I will say, though, that the place that they were living in at this time...
Yeah.
was a pretty creepy building.
Okay.
It wasn't the first instance that something weird had happened in that apartment.
Okay.
So
that makes a little creepier.
Yeah, it was pretty. When she first told me that, I wasn't there for this.
Mm-hmm.
But when she first told me that, I was like, "Oh my God, like I would be not living there."
Her second story to me comes off very guardian-like. There used to be an orange cat that slept at the foot of my bed every night. Jensen. There used to be an orange cat that slept at the foot of my bed every night in the same spot, or in the same apartment as the above story. We didn't have a cat, and we were not allowed to have pets in those apartments. There was not a way for a cat to even get inside, but he was there every single night.
Huh.
So...
You know, they say that cats actually ward off evil spirits.
Yeah, I've heard that.
So that's in the lore out there.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it was some kind of like guardian.
Yeah. Her last story. I once stayed the night with my aunt while I was sleeping on her couch. I woke up in the middle of the night to see a little boy come down the hallway and go into the bathroom. I thought it was her son, so I waited for him to come out so that I could go use the bathroom. But after 20 minutes, he never came out. So I went to knock, and no one answered. I pushed the door open, and the bathroom is empty, and the light is still on. Turns out I wasn't the only one to see this little boy. My aunt, mom, and cousin had also seen him on separate occasions.
I think I remember that story as well.
That's creepy.
Yeah.
I've never heard that.
No, that place, I didn't visit that apartment too many times, but I had heard some stories from it, so...
Oh, man, I wonder if it was residual or well, it turned on the light, so it could be intelligent.
No, it sounded like it was residual.
What?
It sounds like residual to me.
Why does that sound it could turn on the light, like consciously turn on the light. That's a conscious action.
I mean, I guess that's true.
I don't know if residual energy, I don't know that residual energy can like gather enough energy to physically turn on the light.
Yeah, I know they just repeat whatever they did in their daily routines or what happened before their death.
Right. All right. Do you have another one for us?
I do. Okay, so this one, the story itself is a little short, but it has some interesting history behind it. So
okay,
I will first get into the story, and then we'll link it together with a little bit of history.
Sounds good.
Okay, so this story comes from a friend of mine. They live in Florida. They live, actually, I think this happened right near Pensacola. So,
okay.
So here we go. All right. I usually always carry my gun on me in general, when I go camping. It stays on my hip, along with a couple of knives and bear spray.
Your friend is ready for the apocalypse.
Yeah. This friend, for context, they go camping. They take solo trips out camping. So,
I mean,
they like to be
have guns
prepared,
and
I guess,
knives,
which
too.
I understand.
Definitely knives.
Oh yeah,
You need
for
those
sure.
when you're camping.
Um,
Lindsay's like, yeah, that's why you need them.
all right. There
Lindsay,
was
who freaking keeps a knife in every orifice of it.
that is not completely true.
That is
okay?
completely true.
I used to
Like, you have a knife in your boot? She's like, yeah. Why? In case we need
listen. You never know. Okay. All right.
Don't fuck with Lindsay. You'll get knifed.
All right. There was this new site I went to, which was quite nice. It was 12 sites. Only one was occupied by me. Night came. The usual sounds are there. I have the fire going. I'm eating dinner and got a beer in hand. Sounds like a good time to me.
Yeah.
Then it goes quiet. Like dead quiet.
Sounds like a not good time.
I'm pretty familiar with the sounds of the native critters, but there wasn't anything going on. And you just got this feeling of dread. They just got this feeling of absolute dread. Okay. So they sat there for a bit longer, maybe an hour or two before
that's too long for me.
I just left.
That is, your friend is braver than I am. It's all those guns and knives.
I got all of my stuff and left. Something wasn't right. They said they went back the next day. There were no tracks out of the ordinary, but it was really unsettling.
There had to be something there because, everything went quiet. And that's what nature does. Like, whether it's a natural disaster or a predator, it gets quiet when there's danger.
Yeah, that's what they said, that it got so quiet, so still. It was unsettling. And when they went back that next day to check it out, there was still a feeling of unsettling.
Oh.
And they felt like they were being watched, like something was watching them.
Oh my God.
Now this campsite was located it's a newer campsite located on a lake called Cotton Lake.
Okay.
Just a little lake off I think the city is Munson. It's actually in Munson, Florida, I think is the actual city. But those little cities are actually little suburbs of a bigger city, which is about 30 minutes away, called Milton, Florida. Now, here's some interesting facts about Milton. And this might be why things got a little spooky in Cotton Lake, okay?
Spoopy.
Milton is an old city in Florida, probably one of the oldest cities in Florida.
Okay.
I believe it was established in 1844.
All right.
So shortly after Florida became a state.
Okay.
It was very lively when it first formed. It was a little mill town. Lumber was its main, source. At its peak, it caused the spring up of these other little suburb areas like Munson.
Yeah.
But I guess there were two fires that occurred in Milton. One in 1880, I think, which wasn't that bad. That one wasn't that bad. But there was a worse fire in 1909 that took out 18 buildings.
Oh, God, that's a big fire.
Yeah, it took out most of the city. Most of the commercial city was destroyed in this fire.
I'm laughing because the dog groaned. I leaned back. She's sitting behind me.
So
hold on, I'm gonna try and get Gypsy on the mic. That's the dog. There's a whole lot of.
So, starting from 1910 up through 1914, they had to rebuild, and they did it as fast as they could.
Okay.
Because they, the town, they depended on this town.
Yeah.
I think it's during. I don't think anyone died from that fire, but that's still a devastating loss.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot. Moving on, There, nearby, there was there's a place called Santa Rosa.
Okay.
I think it's in the 50s, in the 1950s. So we're jumping ahead a little. In the 1950s, there was a hospital that was built in Santa Rosa. But to build the hospital, they had to relocate a cemetery.
Oh.
The cemetery was from the Civil War.
Oh, no.
So they, took out all the grave sites that were marked from this location they were going to build on. So yeah, they had to relocate this old cemetery to build this hospital. And they relocated all the marked graves into another nearby cemetery, and then they built this hospital.
Okay.
Now, supposedly, this hospital is haunted. Like, seriously haunted. And I'm like, well, sure, they built it on top of a cemetery.
Yeah.
Like an old one at that. Milton itself did also have history from the Civil War.
Yeah.
Like, it was definitely a site for it.
Okay.
And then there was a little bit on Cotton Lake itself. I found this was on the it's a history page I found.
Do you still have the link?
Yes.
Okay.
The story for this goes that Cotton Lake was built when they were clearing out some trees there, because they
so is it like a
it's a lumber town. They did lumber,
right? But the lake, is it a or like a
they have boats and things.
Well, I mean, is it a man-made lake?
I think so.
Okay.
Well, that's what this little story was that I found on it was. So what I read about this is that the Cotton Lake was actually built while they were clearing out the forest area. And it was like the first instance that chainsaws came into play. Yeah. So they
cool.
said when the water flooded the area that they cut all these trees down, it created the lake.
Oh.
Now, this account said that they witnessed when the water receded, like during a particularly dry, season, the old stumps of these trees were still there. Uh-huh. And they were enormous trees because they were old trees. Oh. Because nobody, spirits. I guess this is allegedly, nobody actually knows.
Right.
There's a lot of
there's no documentation.
Right. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, cool.
And that was related to some photos that were posted. They found like an old well in the swampland just outside Cotton Lake, which they said was left over from like it being like an old mill site or like an old camp there, because it was a big lumber spot. Like that whole Milton area, like their primary source of income was lumber.
Right.
And they moved the lumber down the river. That's how they did it. So I'm thinking like all of this led to that spooky unsettlingness
just all
of their story. Yeah, just there's a lot of stuff that happened there. I mean, you got the Civil War that happened. You got grave sites that are being dug up and moved around. Yeah. You've got fire, like 2 big fires that took out the city that was just 30 minutes away.
Yeah, and it's an old town, so I'm sure it's had a lot of
and then if Cotton Lake itself was like a site of old sawmills and like mills itself, there could be, energy there.
Right.
So who knows? But it's very interesting that this location was so close to a spot that has so much history that.
That's cool. I'm glad your friend made it out with her guns and her knife.
Made it out in one piece.
Yes.
Without anything spooky coming out of the trees.
I would not have gone back.
Me neither. I don't even know if I would have bothered. Like, if I had left stuff there, I'd be like, no, you know what?
I'll buy more.
It ain't worth it. It's just stuff.
All right. So this next one starts like this. When I was very young, my kid sister had an imaginary friend named Sarah. Sarah was always around, and she held on to her for years. Everywhere we went, Sarah went, and my sister was always communicating things that Sarah would say to me. I just let it go and would respond back or play along, saying things like, "Tell Sarah I said this," or "What does Sarah think?" I'd ask Sarah's opinions on games and things that we should play. I'd ask her thoughts on things that we did, and I was more than happy to include my sister's imaginary friend in our games. I recall my mom one night calling me into the kitchen and asking me if I had an imaginary friend as well. I said yes. Of course, I told her it was Robin Hood, and she sent me off to play. She would also ask my sister questions about Sarah, like what she wore, what she liked to do, etc.
Seems innocent enough.
Mm-hmm. My sister told my mom that Sarah wore a dress with an apron and a funny hat, and that without prompting, she informed my mother that Sarah wasn't imaginary, she had just had to go. My mother asked how she died, and my sister responded with, "She will only tell me that she got very sick." You might say that a kid could easily come up with all these things that correlate with history, but my sister wasn't even in kindergarten at the time. She wasn't old enough to be that aware of this part of history, or the fact that people died of sickness back then, let alone death itself. It gets weirder, though. One night, my sister just started sobbing hysterically while we were in bed. And when asked what was wrong, she told me that Sarah had told her job was done and it was time to go. My sister was literally devastated. Weirder still, we're both adults now, and I just learned recently that they actually found Sarah's grave whenever we lived in California. I wish I could remember the last name, but I don't. Still, it's all a bit odd for someone so young to be aware of those things, don't you think?
That's stuff you see straight out of a horror movie.
I don't know. It sounds like Sarah was friendly to me.
No, I mean those movies where like the kid sees a ghost that lives in the house. And then they find the grave later. Yeah. Yeah, and they find out, oh, this was actually a kid that died in the house. And
right. This was a person.
Because it's a horror movie, they died in some horrible way.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. They're freaking like trying to chase you down. You think the kid's trying to kill you, but they're really just
trying to warn you.
Not even trying to warn you, trying to get you to help them uncover their death.
Oh, yeah, that too.
I've seen that.
I actually think there's a scene, or that's like some parts of Amityville Horror, if you've ever seen that movie.
I have seen the original, but it was so long ago I don't remember.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, that happened in the movie. I mean, that was an actual real event that happened.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure the movie was exaggerated and embellished.
Oh, of course, Hollywood, but
yeah. You got anything else?
I've got one more for you.
Okay, she's got one more, and then I think I've got two more, and then we'll tie this up.
All right, so it's funny that you said that the little girl in that story's name was Sarah, because this next story, my last story, comes from a friend of mine whose name is also Sarah.
Okay. We're doing really good with like the, what do you call that?
The transitions.
No, I mean the segues.
Yeah.
Yeah, transition, same thing.
So this story actually, she decided to share from her late father.
Okay.
It was his story, so I'll get right into it. Okay, so his name was Todd. He was a nurse, and he said he used to tell her a lot of really interesting stories when she was younger, but this one specifically is one that stuck with her. Okay, so he had a patient he was taking care of for a while, and he worked at the SICU, which is the Surgical Intensive Care Unit.
Okay.
So most of those patients came out of surgery, needed intensive care.
Yeah.
Now, one day he was walking and he saw one of his patients wandering the halls. So he called out to him, and the man turned around and smiled at him, and then he walked around the corner.
Okay.
Well, he followed him.
He's not around the corner.
And when he came around that corner,
he's gone.
The patient was gone.
Oh.
And so he ran to his room.
And he's dead.
And the patient had passed away
at
the exact moment that he turned to smile.
He was happy to go. He's probably done suffering.
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
The doctor on the scene pronounced his death.
Holy freaking cow. That kind of makes me sad a little bit. That one's sad.
It is. And I can't imagine just being like, you just minding your business and then there's, a patient walking down the halls and you're like, hey, wait a second.
ICU of
You're
all
not
places.
supposed to be up. You just got out of surgery.
Right. And you're in the ICU.
So, of course, I feel like your first instinct is to be like, oh my God, why is that guy
up?
up?
What are you doing?
Yeah. So naturally you'd want to run after him. And then I just can't imagine the feeling that he had when he came around that corner and there was nothing. He was just gone. Just like, what?
What? Just what?
Like,
yeah.
That would be creepy to me. Like, I don't know. And the fact that was essentially, sounds like to me, that was the soul departing from the body.
Yeah,
and
saying goodbye even, I feel like.
And he was just like the last person who saw him before he left.
Oh, God, that's freaking wild.
It is.
When I die, don't, bury me. I don't want to die in a hospital gown if that's what I have to wear for the rest of my existence, okay? I mean, put me in something comfy, but not that. I don't want, my boom boom hanging out to the whole world. Okay.
So you mean when you're on your deathbed, you just want to be like, okay, I'm dying, so take me home.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to be home for sure.
That's fair. That's fair. I know a lot of people who went that way. One of my grandparents was taken home from the nursing home when he was
mine too.
Announced to be terminal. I was like, well, I don't want to die here.
Yeah. Yeah, because why would you?
I know.
Why wouldn't you want to be in the comfort of your home?
The place that you're comfortable around, the place that had all these good memories.
Right. Hopefully good memories.
Right.
All right. So I have a couple of more. I really think that we've hit our time. We're not going to have to read any of these urban legends, which sucks because we've got some really good ones. But
save them for next time.
Yeah, we'll save them for next time. So this is from Jay. Not really ghosts, but proof that there must be something divine looking out for us. I'm a believer in God, and if you ask anyone who knows me, they will tell you that my faith is solid. I think it may have saved me. It was hunting season, and I had been out in the neighbor's woods behind our house with permission. He lets me hunt there every season. We live way out in the country, and the nearest town consists of 4 little roads that cross through one another. I have a good chunk of land that my house sits on, and in between the woods where I hunt and my house is that same neighbor's cornfield. It's massive, miles of cornfield, and then there are the woods. There's a dirt road that you can take back there, but again, it is a bumpy and rigid road. You might take a truck out, but not a little car. So you can see that I am a long walk from home where my wife is. I set up my tree stand, which is a good ways up, and as I'm sitting, waiting, it falls.
Oh, no.
I fall out of the tree and land on both of my feet.
Ah.
And from the height I fell, they're both broken.
And I've seen tree stands. They literally put those things way up there.
They do. I don't even know how they get them up there.
I don't even know how you get on one.
My stepdad.
Do you climb
in a tree stand, and I don't know how you get it up there. I don't know. You got to put it up while you're balancing on a ladder.
That's a
and
good
then
question.
What do you do with the ladder after? How do you hide the ladder?
I have questions for hunters. How?
Oh God. But anyway, so as I'm sitting and waiting, it falls. I fall out of the tree, I land on both of my feet, and from the height I fell, they are both broken. How am I getting home? I can't really walk on 2 broke feet. So I begin dragging myself.
Ooh.
For hours. I get out of the woods and I'm in the field. I'm tired, I hurt. The phone doesn't have a signal out here anyway, so calling 911 or texting my wife isn't gonna work. I finally just pray, and when I say I saw a white truck when the prayer left my lips on the road, I can't tell you how relieved I was. This man backs his truck up to me, gets out to come help me, and he is wearing all white. White clothes, pure white hair, and the brightest, bluest eyes I have ever seen.
Wow.
He gets me into the bed of his truck and gets me home. Remember, this is a small town, and you'd best believe that after I was good and steady again, I did my due diligence and tried to thank this man. No one in this town owns a white truck, and being the small town community that we are, people generally know when people are rolling through. No one could help me figure out where this man had come from. No one knew the license plates on the truck. No one had even seen the truck.
Wow.
You might say he was just passing through our little town on the way here, but we're really on the way to nowhere. Pretty sure Guardian Angel saved my life that day.
That's crazy.
Yep. Oh, I'm sorry. I have like 3 more stories, guys. This may run a little long, guys. I'm so sorry.
That's good, though.
This is from Son of a Gun. When my dad was younger, he was really interested in music. He got the bright idea to pick up a Ouija board and ask spirits for help.
Oh, no.
He wanted help getting better at his music because he played guitar. He said the next thing he remembered was being held down on his bed by an invisible force. Something was growling in his face, and the only way he could free himself was by reciting the Lord's Prayer. Whatever was holding him down let go. He says that was English. He says that was one of the scariest experiences he's ever had, and that he felt he was being pinned down by the devil.
Straight from angels to devils.
I was just thinking the same thing.
Good
I was
Lord,
like, we literally
freaking
went from heaven to hell.
Spooky.
Oh, God, that had to be a demon.
I don't mess with demons. Anything, nuh-uh.
No. God, no.
I certainly wouldn't mess with a Ouija board either.
No. Again, there's a way to do it, but I'm not going to tell you how.
You can happily keep that stuff to yourself.
All right. This one is called Girl in the Casino. No name here. I feel like we're rushing through them now, guys. I'm sorry.
No, they're just short. These ones are just like short.
Yeah, I guess there's not a lot to comment on when they're real short.
Little short stories.
So, Girl in the Casino. I work in a casino that is known for being haunted. I'm not going to say the name because we have enough people that come through here. But
yeah, joke.
Do I?
Yeah, no.
But I have a few stories from others and a couple of my own. One day while I was working, I was just standing behind the counter. It was a slow day and I was watching the ramp. In my ear, I hear someone say, "Hey," clear as day. When I turned around to look over my shoulder, I caught a glimpse of a man of color wearing a white suit and a white fedora hat standing there. He tipped his hat, smiled, and was gone. This was the only time I had seen him, but others in my department had seen him before. Another time, when waiting to get into the men's bathrooms... Oh, I just want to comment. At least that guy wasn't like one of those grumpy guests. Sounds like he's a pleasant guest, a regular.
Yeah. Someone who really enjoyed
being there. Yeah.
Yeah. Or just like people. Who knows?
Maybe. He tipped his hat. He was a true gentleman.
He tipped his hat.
That's so nice. Okay. Second part of this person's story. Another time when waiting to get into the men's bathrooms, I was in the cleaning department at this time, and being a woman, I would have to shut the men's room down completely to clean it. A gentleman asked me if he could use the restroom before I got in there. I told him sure and blocked it after he went in so no one else would, because I had already been waiting for several others. I remember he had a blue t-shirt with 2 buttons on the front, jean shorts, and a ball cap. I could see him clearly as I can see my spouse sitting across from me now. So he's in there and I'm waiting. And I'm waiting. And I'm waiting. This is a small bathroom with only 3 stalls, and I finally decide to holler in, "Sir, are you all right?" He was young, but people drink a lot and sometimes they pass out. And I wanted to make sure that he was okay. No answer. So I grab a nearby male employee and ask him to go and check and see if he's in there. He goes in, comes back out and tells me there is no one in there. There is not another way to exit this bathroom. I was standing there the entire time with my eyes on the bathroom so that I wouldn't miss it whenever he came out. And I had the blockade up, and I wanted to be able to open it whenever he came back, but he never did. The casino has a lot of people who pass away there. It's not really uncommon. I mean, there's a hotel, we have lots of older guests, and energy sticks, so I'm sure some of it's just residual. Some people practically live there, though, and I guess they just continue to enjoy it, even after death.
That's unsettling.
Boy, imagine just like, I wonder if the camera picked it up.
Ooh, imagine just being like...
But like, what if it didn't? And they're like, why is this girl just standing there talking to herself and staring?
Yeah, like, why is she just standing there and not doing her job? Like, what's the deal here?
Who's she talking to? Oh, that's funny. But, so yeah, those are our stories.
Either way you slice it, still spooky.
I don't know how long we're going to be running after I cut out all of the, like, long pauses and things. But right now we're running at 1 hour and 30 minutes.
Ooh, no, I think that's plenty of time.
Yeah, so we're going to call it, because it usually only cuts about 10 minutes out when I edit it. But we will give you guys some urban legends next time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, if you guys like creepy things and you want to hear more stories like these ones, then please like, subscribe, and rate us. Help us out by sharing our podcast with those who you think might also enjoy listening to Macabre at Midnight. You can find us on Apple Music, Amazon Music, Spotify, Audible, iHeartRadio, YouTube, and many more. We post lots of spooky stuff, and you can catch our spooky stories here in the Listener Library every Wednesday night. Or if you feel so inclined, you can pop on over to our mainline episodes and join us while we talk about just about everything that could possibly sit on our scale of screams. We post those episodes every Monday and Friday night. If you would like to add your experience or a short work of horror fiction to our library, you can submit it to macabatmidnight@outlook.com. Be sure to include an alias if you would like us to mention your name. Or if you'd like to remain anonymous, let us know. You can follow us on Instagram at macabre_at_midnight_podcast for pictures, updates, and episode information. Thank you all for listening. Remember, stay spooky, latch your windows, lock your front door, check under your bed, throw a little bit of salt on the carpet, and we will see you in your nightmares.
Good night.